Hi, this is Jason. I wanted to react to this video by, I think it's Maia Szalavitz, for two reasons. One is I want to do just a little bit of a reaction to her point of view. It's a pretty strong point of view, and it's one that's out there. And this particular video got almost 100,000 views on Big Think, so it's a fairly popular point of view. But I also wanted to go through the comment section underneath the video because she gets some love and respect and a certain amount of bashing as well. And I just think it's interesting what you can and you can't accomplish in a setting like this, and what it's possible to say and what it's not possible to say. So I'm going to show a little bit of this video, and then just share a few comments and thoughts about it. So let me put my ears in and watch a little bit of this video.
I mean, there are people who are trying to promote brain surgery for addiction using electrical stimulation of that area, and it doesn't work any better than methadone. And that's not to say that methadone isn't the most useful drug we currently have, but it does not involve invasive surgery. And I should say methadone and buprenorphine, the opioid agonists, are the best treatments that we have for opioid addiction. And what they do is two things.
All right, I'm gonna stop right there. Yeah, there's a desire, I would say, a hope that some people have that we'll be able to conquer addiction through the use of some sort of medical procedure, whether it be a pill or a surgical procedure or methadone or Suboxone. And my response to that is always just to show someone a picture of somebody living on the street, and everything that entails, and just say, okay, we take away all their cravings tomorrow, all of their brain functioning, we return it back to normal, the way it was before they began using drugs. Is this person ready for real life? And when you look at that photo of the person who's homeless, you realize no, that there are so many things that need to take place. That there's issues of job, there's issues of health, there's issues of shelter, there's issues of social skills, there's issues of what do I say on my resume. I mean, it is not, if you just take away the medical aspects of addiction, you have not cured the problem. And I'm glad to hear her say that. That's a bit affirming. And I also appreciate that if we can get the same result from prescribing someone Suboxone versus an invasive brain surgery, I'm going to go for the less risky Suboxone in general.
The first thing is they cut the death rate by 50%, which this happens whether you continue using on top or not. So that's like sheer harm reduction, and that's wonderful. If we can keep you alive long enough that you stabilize your life, that is a lot better than having you die.
So I'll just kind of let that go now. There's a whole debate around harm reduction. You can check out my video with Tom Wolfe where he's talking about some of the extreme things that are done in the name of harm reduction and how they may actually increase the harm that happens. I won't get into that now, but harm reduction is definitely worthwhile taking a look at.
The other thing that they do is they allow people who are ready to stabilize their lives. So you couldn't tell right now if I was on a maintenance treatment or not, because basically once you get a tolerance to these drugs, you are not high or impaired, and you can drive and you can work and you can love and you can do all of these things. What we don't understand is we think, oh, you've just substituted one addiction for another. No, what you've done is you've substituted compulsive behavior despite negative consequences, and now you just have physical dependence. And that's not a real problem as long as you have a safe and legal supply.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would like to do a whole video on that, on if you're just dependent upon the drug and you have a safe and legal supply, does that fix the issue of addiction? I think it certainly brings down the number of societal problems that exist. That's an interesting statement. So I'll come back to that at some point.
I think the most important place to start is that addiction is a learning disorder. It's not a sign that you are a bad person. And if you want to have a safe and addiction-free, or at least lower-level addiction workplace or school, you want people to feel included and comfortable and safe, and you don't want this to be an adversarial thing. The research shows that the best way to get people help is through compassion and empathy and support, and absolutely not tough love.
All right, so a lot in there. But let's take a look at the comments below. And let me first say, I agree with 90% of that. That showing empathy and compassion and love as a general stance towards the person is necessary. However, it may not be sufficient. And she's sort of suggesting that it's necessary and sufficient. Sometimes you need to have a carrot and a stick, and you need to have something with a little teeth behind it to motivate people. And there's nothing, if that's done with compassion and in the person's best interest, many times that is absolutely the most appropriate and ethical thing to do. But let's check out the comments here. So there's one at the top here by Resilient Recovery Ministries. It's absolutely a brilliant comment. I don't have anything to say about that. And then somebody from Casey. My significant other has been to jail 3 times, rehab, and now is about to go to another rehab. It doesn't matter. If it's empathetic approach or tough love, it's up to the addict to do the work taught to them by their care team and wanting to get better. So you begin to see, just looking at this, how something that Maia has said based on research and how it's being interpreted by the people who are reading it. And then right underneath it, any human relationship, compassion is the key. Sympathetic concern for the suffering of others. And then Amy Brown, you can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped, period, in all capital letters. And then Oki, my dad was an addict that continuously got treatments and repeatedly went back to drugs. I feel like if he'd gone to see a therapist and talked about the problems behind why he did them in the first place, would have helped him. He'd quit for months or a couple of years when he got into religion, but that didn't fight the underlying problem. So as you can see, there's a number of people who've had someone in their life that they're dealing with, and they've boiled the issue down to one thing, and there's disagreement among these folks. Here's an interesting one. I've been a junkie for 15 years. I'm drug-free for 23 years now, and I say treatments, remedies, and experts never managed to cure me, so forgive my skepticism. I cannot explain how I stopped. I just remember that I stopped and never looked back. I never managed to help anyone, although I tried to share what I got. As I said, I do not have the formula, just the experience. So now we start to see even more levels of experience here. Someone is going, well, compassion or no compassion, none of that treatment stuff helped. I just cold turkeyed it one day. Can't explain why, and I can't share it with anyone else because I don't can't explain it to myself. Then underneath that, you've got someone who says you don't tolerate aggressive behavior from someone just because they have a problem. True. I agree. If someone wants help, we can support and encourage their efforts, but they have to want it. So we go back to this. They have to want it. Excusing bad behavior just enables them. And I think if we asked Maia what she thought of this statement, she would agree. I think it's not counter to what she's saying. I think she's simply saying, don't do it with judgment in your eyes. If you have to provide consequences, don't gleefully assert your moral superiority over the person. Instead, treat them with compassion. So I think, it's interesting how a couple of assertions that she's made, most of which are based on the research, can engender so much criticism and sometimes people who agree with her as well. But there's such a variety of responses to what she said, and I think that gets to something that's really important about addiction, and that is there's no silver bullet. Yes, being rude and confrontational probably doesn't help anybody. At the same time, with this warmth, you sometimes have to have structure and rules as well. And it's a balancing act between the two. And if anybody thinks that they've got that proportion exactly right, they're probably selling you something. It is very complex. And as you can see, people have just kind of thrown up their arms in exasperation at a certain point. That they just have to want it. And I see this with people who relapse several times. Well, you can't want it for somebody else. You have to want it for yourself. Okay, well, this time, therapist, I want it for myself. That's why I know it's going to stick. 6 months later, they're relapsing again. There simply is no magic bullet. I think addiction is something that is so poorly understood that we need to pretty much throw everything at it and bring everything to bear. Yes, do it for yourself. Also, think about your kids. Also, think about the legal consequences. Also, talk to your doctor about what's happening to your liver. Also, try and find something to replace drinking with that's more exciting and more interesting and more meaningful than the drinking. And also, get rid of your drinking friends. And I just think there's probably almost no limit to the number of items or ideas that could potentially support a person who's trying to quit. So, do I have a great conclusion here? No, because I'm not selling you anything. If I was selling you something, I'd tell you exactly the formula at this point. This is what it is. We found that it's true. There is no magic formula. However, I also think it's totally up to them is not an adequate response either. I think in compassion, we keep pushing, we keep trying to impose structure, we keep trying to enforce the rules. At the same time, we're trying to manage the fact that we don't want to ruin the relationship. We want them to see that we are a compassionate person who's on their side, who doesn't judge them, and no one can get that formula right. We all fail. We've all fallen short of the glory of God when it comes to dealing with somebody who's in the throes of addiction. So, what's my conclusion here? That Maia's probably 90% right. The people in the comment section have very good reasons for believing what they believe, and it's worthwhile to keep trying and keep trying to find what the motivating lever is that's going to help someone take a step back from addiction and get healthy.